Branded enemies of the state by the Maker's evil cabal, it will be up to Tony Stark the Iron Lad to kickstart a superhuman revolution. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Ultimates issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where Hickman's Ultimates prelude story had ended, Iron Man and his ragtag team of wannabe superheroes had just narrowly managed to escape the destruction of Stark-Stain headquarters by using the Immortus engine to jump forward in time. The only problem is that the Maker and his cabal have gone out of their way to brand Tony and his friends all terrorists and fugitives from justice, and if that isn't bad enough, the good guys still have one massive ticking clock they're going up against, and that is the Maker won't be stuck in Latveria forever. He'll break out in about 18 months, give or take, according to Reed Richard Doom's calculations, and when he's out, all hell will break with it. So it looks like the good guys are going to have to think up a plan and think it up quick if they ever hope to save their skin. And hey, you know, because time travel got them into this situation, surely time travel can get them out of this situation, right? Together, Tony and Reed use the information they stole from the Maker's own computers to create something they call origin boxes. We've actually seen these already if you've been reading Spider-Man and the other assorted Ultimate comics. Basically, they're little hollow messages letting people know exactly what it is the Maker took from them and the sort of heroes they're supposed to be over in the 616 universe, as well as the keys to unlocking their latent super potential. The plan is quite simple: send these origin boxes back in time 6 months and wait for a brand new generation of superheroes to be born. And I mean, really, Iron Lad could probably use all the extra hands he could get right now, as even the heroes he does have in his employ aren't exactly tipping the scales at the moment. Thor is actually bleeding out, having been stabbed with a magic blade at the end of that last Hickman story. And I mean, really, if the gods themselves can't help you, then you really are boned. Then of course there's still the matter of Captain America, who they only just recently figured out how to de-thaw. Poor Steve is waking up from World War II in 2024 only to be told by Tony that America as a country was actually dissolved in 1969, meaning everything that him and his whole generation fought and died for has been rendered pretty useless by the Maker, meaning that poor Cap is, well, Cap of nothing at the moment. Understandably, Steve does not take this revelation well. In fact, he doesn't take a lot well. He thinks that Reed and Tony are wasting their time with this whole origin box thing. You can't start a revolution from a science lab. You gotta be boots on the ground. You gotta inspire people. You gotta give them something to believe in. And ultimately, Steve gets the last laugh in this scenario, as once they send the boxes back, the results they get back are admittedly pretty disastrous. Oh sure, some actually ended up taking. As we know, Peter Parker did become Spider-Man. We also see a Captain Marvel. But the timeline is so out of whack now, the people they're trying to recruit and turn into the Avengers aren't even really the same people anymore. Hawkeye walks away, other people die. And that doesn't even account for technology being intercepted, like the Shocker, meaning that Iron Lad is actively creating villains too without knowing it. Seeing that Ultimates 1.0 failed, it looks like Iron Lad and the others are going to have to go right to Ultimates 2.0. A pretty fitting title, given that this book is quite literally a second attempt at restarting the Ultimates in a new Ultimate universe. If they can't create heroes out of whole cloth, then they'll have to do things the old-fashioned way. Recruit them and teach them to be heroes on the fly, and who exactly do Iron Lad and the others have their eyes on? Well, quite fittingly, two Avengers originals, Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym. What exactly is this power couple up to in a world twisted by the Maker where heroes never actually came to be? Well, get this, the two bug-themed superheroes are working as exterminators. Oh, the irony. It seems that Hank has been a little distant from Janet recently, which makes their next job all the more difficult when they're called to gas some moloids, so I can only assume are much more prominent now, in a world wherein they didn't have the Fantastic Four to regularly fight. Obviously, Hank and Janet tell the person who hired them to kick rocks that the moloids are intelligent, they bury their dead, they tell stories, and that they most certainly don't deserve to be gassed, showing that heroism is still very much alive in these two. It's after that we actually learn several very interesting things in short order. One, it seems that a couple years ago, Hank actually suffered a terrible brain injury. No doubt one orchestrated by the Maker to make it so that Pym couldn't create his trademark Pym particles and change the Marvel Universe as we know it. Furthermore, when Iron Lad shows up to make his team pitch, we realize that Pym had actually been given one of those origin boxes for him and his wife. He just hid it. Why on Ultimate Earth earth would he do something like that? Well, his reasoning actually makes a ton of sense. You see, Hank actually read the files on him and his wife, and he came to the horrifying realization that 616 Hank Pym is kind of an asshole, either going crazy or fusing with Ultron, or just hitting his wife, and for all those reasons and more, Hank never wanted to become that guy, and as such just put his fingers in his ears and hoped that he could ignore the whole thing. But as is often the case, we usually meet our fate on the roads we take to avoid it, and it's at that very moment Iron Lad and his team end up under attack by Captain Britain. Or as Steve Rogers so eloquently puts it, man, that guy's pretty French for a guy called Captain Britain. A massive fight ends up breaking out, and Janet wastes absolutely no time accepting her origin box, donning her costume, and joining the fight, because Janet Van Dyne was always destined to be a hero. Hank, though, is still very much paralyzed by self-doubt and has no idea what to do. In fact, he probably would have stayed there too were it not for Captain America making one of his oh-so-classic inspiring Cap speeches. He says that for better or worse, this Hank Pym standing in front of him right now is not the Hank from the other Earth. He's a different man. His sins are not his to be carried. And that there must come a time in all men's life when they aspire to be something bigger than themselves, and when you know it, that's exactly the nudge that Hank needed to accept his fate as Giant Man. Perfect timing too, as a giant foot is exactly what the good guys needed to beat back the forces of Captain Britain. And why yes, before you even have to ask, Hank's supersized foot ends up leaving a giant footprint that just so happens to also double as the logo for this Ultimates team. Because really it doesn't matter what Earth you're on, superhero branding is very important, meaning that the good guys are now officially that much closer to their goal of raising up a superhuman revolution and finally saving the world from the Maker once and for all. And so that was Ultimates issue number 1, everybody, and overall I would say this was a pretty strong start to this brand new series. I like all the small little changes that help differentiate this book not just from the mainline Avengers book, but even the old Ultimate series. I dig that here in this story, the good guys are actually fugitives. Not just fighting the Maker and his cabal, but actually fighting his whole PR machine that is painting them as the bad guys. Now in those Hickman stories, I question too, what was the point of continuing to mention Universe 616 if this universe was supposed to be a new thing? Well, the answer seems to exist in people like Spider-Man and like Hank. And that is that this universe offers a clean slate and a second chance creatively. And honestly, I think that's pretty damn cool, and I can't wait to see who they seek to shine the spotlight on next. Overall, I would give this one a very positive 8 out of 10, and I'll definitely be checking out issue 2.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way, everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.